On the freezing night of February 9, 2004, Maura Murray simply vanished. The 21-year-old nursing student crashed her black Saturn on a curve along Route 112 in New Hampshire. A school bus driver stopped to help. She refused, said she was fine, asked him not to call the police. 7 minutes later, when authorities arrived, Maura had disappeared into the darkness of the forest. But here's what makes this case absolutely disturbing. Everything suggests Maura was running from something or planning something. Hours before the crash, she sent mysterious emails to professors, claiming a family death that never happened. She emptied her bank account, packed up her dorm room belongings, as if she wasn't coming back, bought enough alcohol for a week, and drove alone to the White Mountains without telling anyone. The car was left behind, locked, with a rag stuffed in the tailpipe. Her cell phone, school records, and alcohol bottles were inside. But Maura, no trace. No footprints in the snow beyond a few yards. No body. No concrete clues. 20 years later, the case remains unsolved. Police treat it as a crime. The family believes in abduction. Theories range from suicide to murder, from voluntary disappearance to human trafficking. Every lead hits a dead end. Every witness adds more questions than answers. Maura Murray disappeared on a dark New Hampshire road, but left behind one of modern America's greatest criminal mysteries. And the question that haunts everyone who knows her story remains: what really happened that night?
Maura Murray grew up in Hampshire, Massachusetts, the fourth of 5 children in the Murray family. Her father, Fred Murray, was her hero. They shared a special bond, particularly around their love of running and outdoor activities. From a young age, Maura was known for being bright, determined, and fiercely independent. She excelled in school and was a talented athlete, earning a spot on her high school track team. After graduating from Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, Maura attended the United States Military Academy at West Point. This was a significant achievement, one that demonstrated her intelligence and discipline. However, her time at West Point was short. During her freshman year, Maura was caught using a stolen credit card to order pizza. The incident resulted in her leaving West Point and returning to It was a mistake that would haunt her, but her family supported her through it, and she soon enrolled at the University of Massachusetts Amherst to study nursing. At UMass, Maura seemed to be rebuilding her life. She joined the track team as a walk-on and quickly proved herself as a dedicated runner. She maintained good grades despite the demanding nursing program. She had a boyfriend, Bill Rouge, who was attending the military academy at West Point. Their relationship was complicated by distance, but they appeared committed to making it work. To those who knew her, Maura seemed to be moving forward, leaving her past mistakes behind. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. In the weeks and months before her disappearance, several incidents suggested that Maura was struggling with something. In November 2003, just 3 months before she vanished, Maura was working her campus security job when she received a phone call that left her visibly distraught. Her supervisor found her sobbing, so upset that she couldn't continue working. Maura never told anyone what that phone call was about, and to this day, no one knows who called her or what was said. But whatever it was, it deeply affected her. Then, just days before her disappearance, another strange incident occurred. On February 5, 2004, Maura borrowed her father's brand new Toyota Corolla to go to a party. At some point during the evening, she crashed the car, causing several $1,000s in damage. When police arrived at the scene, they found Maura sitting in the damaged vehicle, unresponsive. She appeared to be in shock or possibly intoxicated, though the details remain unclear. No charges were filed, but Fred Murray had to deal with the insurance claim and the damaged car. This wasn't Maura's first car accident. In fact, she had been involved in multiple accidents in the years prior, which had some people wondering if she was struggling with alcohol issues. Her friends and family have disputed this characterization, saying that while Maura occasionally drank socially, she wasn't dealing with a substance abuse problem. But the pattern of accidents, combined with the credit card incident at West Point and the mysterious crying episode, painted a picture of someone who might have been dealing with more stress and pressure than she let on. The weekend before her disappearance, Maura's boyfriend Bill was supposed to visit her, but he had to cancel at the last minute. This seemed to upset Maura, though exactly how much is hard to say. What we do know is that by Sunday, February 8th, 2004, something in Maura had shifted. Something had made her decide that she needed to leave. She needed to get away, and she needed to do it now. On that Sunday evening, Maura began making preparations that, in hindsight, seemed methodical and deliberate. She went online and searched for rental condominium properties in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, specifically in the Bartlett, Lincoln, and Franconia areas. These are beautiful regions, popular for skiing and hiking, but in February, they're also remote and isolated. She didn't book anything, but the searches showed she was looking for a place to stay somewhere away from her college campus. Then, she started packing. And this is where things get really interesting. Maura didn't just throw some clothes in a bag. She packed her room methodically, boxing up her belongings as if she wasn't planning to return. She gathered her textbooks. She took down posters from her walls. She packed personal items, toiletries, and enough clothing for an extended stay. Her roommate noticed this but didn't think much of it at the time. Maura told her she was just organizing, cleaning up her space, but looking back, it seemed more like someone preparing to leave permanently. On Monday morning, February 9th, 2004, Maura didn't go to any of her classes. Instead, she sent emails to her professors and her work supervisor. The messages were brief but specific. She claimed there had been a death in her family and she would need to be away for about a week. She asked for understanding and said she would be in touch. Tethingese. There was no death in the family. Her family has confirmed this repeatedly. No one had passed away. No one was even sick. It was a complete fabrication. And no one knows why she made up this story. After sending those emails, Maura withdrew nearly all the money from her bank account, about $280. Then she went shopping. She stopped at a liquor store and purchased a significant amount of alcohol: vodka, Kahlua, Bailey's Irish Cream, and boxed wine. It was enough alcohol to last one person several days, or to supply a small gathering. But Maura wasn't planning a party. As far as anyone knows, she was planning to be alone. Around 3:30 that afternoon, Maura got into her 1996 black Saturn sedan and left the UMass campus. She headed north on Interstate 91, driving toward New Hampshire. Her cell phone records show she made several calls during the drive, trying to reach her boyfriend Bill. She didn't reach him. She also checked her voicemail repeatedly. She was making these calls while driving on the highway, heading farther and farther away from her life in By 7 p.m., Maura was deep in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, driving along Route 112 near the tiny village of Woodsville. Tisses rural, isolated terrain. Especially in winter, the road winds through forests, past frozen streams and snow-covered mountains. It's beautiful during the day, but eerie and dark at night, and it was on this road, on this cold February evening, that everything changed. At approximately 7:27 p.m., Maura's Sata crashed on a sharp curve known as the Weathered Barn Curve. The car slid off the road and struck some trees before coming to rest partially in the roadway and partially on the shoulder. The airbags deployed, the windshield was cracked, but the car was still drivable, and more importantly, Maura appeared to be uninjured. A local school bus driver named Butch Atwood was driving home when he came upon the scene. He pulled over and approached the vehicle. Inside, he saw a young woman who appeared shaken but not seriously hurt. Butch asked if she was okay and if she needed help. Maura told him she was fine, that she had already called which later proved to be untrue since her cell phone had no service in that area. Butch offered to call the police, but Maura specifically asked him not to. She insisted she had everything under control. Something about the situation didn't sit right with Butch. Maybe it was the way Maura seemed nervous. Maybe it was the remoteness of the location and the fact that a young woman was alone in the dark on a freezing winter night. Whatever it was, Butch decided to call the police anyway. He drove the short distance to his house and immediately called 911 to report the accident and request assistance for the stranded driver. The call was made at 7:27 p.m. The Haverhill police were notified, and an officer was dispatched to the scene. But the response wasn't immediate. The nearest officer was several miles away, dealing with another matter. It would take him some time to reach the crash site. Meanwhile, Maura was alone with her damaged car on that dark, cold road. Other drivers passed by. At least one neighbor, who lived nearby, saw the scene and noticed the young woman outside the vehicle. But no one stopped to help because Butch had already called the authorities and everyone assumed help was on the way. When police finally arrived at the scene at approximately 7:46 p.m. Gs, 19 minutes after, Butch's 911 call, Maura Murray was gone. The Saturn was still there, locked, with its airbags deployed and the windshield cracked. But there was no sign of the driver. No footprints leading away from the vehicle beyond a short distance up the road. No indication of where she had gone or why she had left. Inside the car, police found several items that would become crucial pieces of evidence. There was the alcohol she had purchased earlier that day, though some of it appeared to have spilled during the crash. There was a damaged cell phone. There were her textbooks and some personal belongings. And there was a printed-out email exchange between Maura and her boyfriend Bill, which suggested there might have been some tension in their relationship. But most puzzling of all was a rag that had been stuffed into the tailpipe of the vehicle. This detail has sparked endless speculation. Some believe it was an attempt to stage the car to look broken down. Others think it might have been related to problems Maura was having with the vehicle before the crash. And some wonder if it indicated suicidal intent, though that theory has been widely disputed. What we know for certain is this. In the span of less than 20 minutes, between the time Butch Atwood left the scene and the time police arrived, Maura Murray disappeared into the night. And despite extensive searches, despite hundreds of tips and leads, despite the efforts of her family and law enforcement, she has never been seen or heard from again. But the question everyone was asking, then and still asks, now was simple. Where could she have gone? And more importantly, did she leave on her own? Or did something happen to her in those critical minutes when she was alone on that dark road?
When Sergeant Cecil Smith of the Haverhill Police Department arrived at the crash site on Route 100, he found an empty car and no driver. This wasn't entirely unusual in rural New Hampshire. People sometimes left accident scenes to avoid DUI charges or because they panicked. But something about this situation felt different. The car was locked. There were valuable items inside, including the alcohol, and the weather was brutally cold, with temperatures well below freezing. Where would someone go on foot in the middle of nowhere on a winter night? Smith immediately began searching the immediate area. He walked up and down Route 112 with his flashlight, looking for any sign of Maura. He checked the woods near the crash site, looking for footprints in the snow. He found a few prints leading a short distance away from the vehicle, but they didn't go far. They seemed to just stop, or perhaps were obscured by the darkness and the snow. He could jet out, but there was no response. The forest was silent except for the wind through the trees. Other officers arrived to assist, and they expanded the search. They knocked on doors of nearby houses, asking if anyone had seen a young woman on foot. Most people hadn't seen anything, though the neighbor who had noticed the accident scene earlier confirmed that there had been someone at the vehicle shortly after the crash. But by the time police were canvassing the area, that person was gone. What is particularly frustrating about the initial response is that it was untreated as an urgent missing person case right away. The working assumption was that Maura had probably walked away from the scene to avoid getting in trouble, and that she would turn up eventually, maybe at a nearby hotel or calling from a friend's house. This wasn't entirely unreasonable given the circumstances, but it meant that crucial hours passed without an aggressive search effort. It wasn't until the next day when Maura's family was contacted and they explained that Maura would never just disappear without telling them that the situation was elevated. Her father, Fred Murray, drove up to New Hampshire immediately. He was frantic, knowing that his daughter was missing in freezing conditions, potentially injured or in danger. He began his own search, driving up and down every road in the area, stopping at gas stations and stores, showing Maura's photos to anyone who would look at it. By February 11th, 2 days after the crash, New Hampshire Fish and Game Department was brought in to conduct a more extensive search. They brought in search dogs, specifically trained to track human scent. The dogs were given Maura's scent from items in her car and then set loose near the crash site. What happened next has been the subject of much debate and analysis. The dogs picked up Maura's scent and followed it east along Route 112 for approximately 100 yards. Then, at a certain point on the road, The dogs lost the scent completely. They circled, tried again, but couldn't pick it back up. To experienced search and rescue teams, this typically means one thing. The person got into a vehicle at that location. The scent trail ended because Maura was no longer on foot. She had gotten into a car and been driven away. This discovery fundamentally changed the investigation. If Maura had gotten into a vehicle, it raised several possibilities. Maybe someone had stopped to help her, and she accepted a ride. Maybe she had prearranged for someone to pick her up. Or maybe, and this is the possibility that terrified her family and investigators, someone had taken her against her will. The theory that Maura was picked up by a passing driver opened up a much more complicated investigation. Route 112 on that Monday night wasn't heavily traveled, but it wasn't completely deserted either. Several vehicles had passed the crash site in the window of time between when Butch Atwood left and when police arrived. Any one of those drivers could have stopped. Any one of them could have offered Maura a ride. And any one of them could have been dangerous. Investigators began the painstaking process of trying to identify every vehicle that had traveled on Route 112 that evening. They reviewed any available surveillance footage from nearby businesses, though coverage in that rural area was extremely limited. They interviewed every resident along the route. They put out public appeals, asking anyone who had driven on Route 112 that night to come forward. Some people did come forward, but their accounts often conflicted or didn't provide useful information, and some drivers were never identified at all. One particularly suspicious detail emerged during these interviews. A man who lived near the crash site reported seeing a person, possibly a woman, running east on Route 112 not long after the accident. The figure was moving quickly, as if trying to get somewhere urgently, or perhaps fleeing from something. But by the time this man thought to mention it to police, several days had passed, and his memory of the exact timing was fuzzy. Was he seeing Maura? Or someone else? Or had he confused the timeline? It was impossible to say for certain. Another witness reported seeing a dark-colored SUV or pickup truck near the crash site around the time Maura disappeared. This vehicle was described as acting somewhat suspiciously, perhaps slowing down or stopping near the scene. But again, the details were vague, and the vehicle was never identified. In a case with so few solid leads, these kinds of uncertain witness reports became both important and frustrating. They suggested something might have happened, but they didn't provide anything concrete enough to investigate thoroughly. As the days turned into weeks, the search for Maura expanded dramatically. Helicopters flew over the forests surrounding the crash site, using heat-sensing equipment to try to locate a body or a person taking shelter. Ground teams searched through the woods on foot, covering miles of difficult snow-covered terrain. Divers searched nearby waterways and ponds, thinking perhaps Maura had walked onto ice that gave way. Every abandoned building, every cabin, every possible hiding place within a reasonable walking distance was checked and rechecked. But there was nothing. No body, no clothing, no personal items. No sign that Maura had been in those woods at all. The lack of physical evidence led some investigators to become increasingly convinced that Maura had indeed gotten into a vehicle and left the area. But this raised another question. Why would she do that? If she had simply wanted a ride to safety or to a hotel, why not stay at the scene and wait for help? Why not call her family once she reached somewhere safe? Why the complete silence? This is where the investigation splits into different theories, each with its own supporters and skeptics. One theory is that Maura's disappearance was voluntary. According to this view, Maura was dealing with serious personal problems stressed from school, relationship issues, the aftermath of the credit card incident at West Point, the recent car accident, and she simply wanted to escape her life. Perhaps she had planned the whole thing, including the crash, as a way to stage her disappearance. Maybe she hitchhiked or had arranged for someone to pick her up, and she's been living somewhere under a new identity ever since. This theory is supported by the fact that Maura had researched places to stay in New Hampshire, had emptied her bank account, had lied about a family emergency, and had packed up her dorm room. These all suggest planning and intent. However, most people close to the case, including Maura's family, find this theory unlikely. Maura was close to her family, especially her father. It seems out of character for her to disappear without ever contacting them again, causing them decades of anguish and uncertainty. Moreover, there's been no trace of her using her social security number, her credit cards, or any other form of identification. In the modern world, it's extremely difficult to truly disappear, especially for over 20 years. And if Maura had wanted to start a new life, why do it in the middle of winter, in a remote location, with limited resources? A second theory is that Maura intended to harm herself. This is perhaps the most painful theory for her family to consider, but investigators have had to examine it. Maura had been under stress. She had made poor decisions recently, and some people have suggested that the alcohol she purchased might have been intended for use in a suicide attempt. Perhaps combined with the cold exposure in the wilderness, the fact that her belongings were packed up, that she created a false excuse for being away, and that she traveled to a remote location, all could be interpreted as preparation for ending her life. But again, there are problems with this theory. If Maura went into the woods to harm herself, where is her body? Despite extensive searches by professionals, nothing has been found. The White Mountains are vast, certainly, and it's possible a body could be missed. But after 20 years, one would expect some evidence to surface: clothing, bones, personal items. Nothing has ever been found. Additionally, people who knew Maura have said that while she was stressed, she didn't exhibit clear signs of suicidal ideation. She was making plans for the future, including an upcoming trip with her boyfriend. She had been talking about her classes and her track season. These don't necessarily prove she wants suicidal. People can hide their true feelings, but they add complexity to this theory. The third major theory, and the one that law enforcement now seems to favor, is that Maura was the victim of foul play. This theory suggests that after her car accident, while she was vulnerable and alone on a dark road, someone stopped and offered her help. This person might have seemed friendly and trustworthy at first, but their intentions were not good. They took Maura somewhere against her will, and she was either harmed or is being held somewhere. Though after 20 years, the latter seems increasingly unlikely. This theory is supported by several factors. First, there's the fact that the search dogs lost her scent on the road, suggesting she got into a vehicle. Second, there's the statistical reality that when young women disappear in circumstances like this, foul play is often involved. Third, there were those unidentified vehicles near the scene, including the suspicious SUV that witnesses reported. And fourth, there is simply the fact that no other theory adequately explains all the evidence and the complete absence of any trace of Maura for 2 decades. But if foul play was involved, who was responsible? This is where the case becomes even more complicated, because several individuals have come under suspicion over the years, though no charges have ever been filed. And that's where things get even darker, because when investigators started looking at who was in the area that night, they discovered something chilling. There were multiple people with troubling histories who either lived near the crash site or could have been passing through. And one name in particular would come to dominate discussions about this case for years to come. As the investigation into Maura Murray's disappearance continued, detectives began looking more closely at the people who lived near the crash site and those who had been in the area that night. What they found was deeply unsettling. This wasn't some idyllic, crime-free rural community. There were individuals in the area with violent criminal histories, and one person in particular would become the focus of intense scrutiny and suspicion. His name was involved in local property ownership near where Maura crashed, and when investigators started digging into backgrounds of people connected to the area, they found some disturbing information. Multiple individuals with problematic pasts had connections to that stretch of Route 112. But establishing a direct link between any of these people and Maura's disappearance proved extraordinarily difficult. The challenge with the foul play theory is that it requires not just opportunity, but also evidence. And despite years of investigation, no physical evidence has ever been found linking any suspect to Maura's disappearance. No DNA, no witnesses who saw Maura with another person after the crash, no confession, nothing concrete that could lead to an arrest, let alone a conviction. This frustration has led to numerous search efforts over the years, including some that became quite controversial. Various areas surrounding the crash site have been searched multiple times, including properties owned by people who became persons of interest in the case. In some instances, ground-penetrating radar was used to search for buried remains. Cadaver dogs were brought in to search wooded areas and properties. Tips from psychics armchair detectives, and concerned citizens have led to dozens of additional searches in locations throughout New Hampshire and beyond. One particularly significant search occurred in 2017 when authorities excavated a section of basement at a property not far from the crash site. The search was based on a combination of tips and suspicions about the property owner. The excavation took days and involved careful, methodical digging and sifting of soil. The entire true crime community watched and waited, hoping this would finally be the breakthrough that solved the case. But when the excavation was complete, nothing had been found. No remains, no evidence, just dirt and disappointment. These repeated searches with no results have taken a toll on everyone involved in the case, but especially on Maura's family. Her father, Fred Murray, spent years of his life searching for his daughter, driving through New Hampshire, investigating leads, pushing authorities to do more. He appeared in countless media interviews, always with the same message: "My daughter is out there, and I won't stop looking for her." Tragically, Fred passed away in 2021 without ever learning what happened to Maura. His death was a devastating blow to the family and to everyone who had followed his tireless efforts over the years. Maura's sisters, particularly Julie Murray, have taken up the torch in recent years. Julie has been incredibly active in keeping the case in the public eye, using social media, podcasts, and media appearances to ensure people don't forget about Maura. She's also been critical of some aspects of the original investigation, arguing that mistakes were made in those crucial early hours that may have cost investigators valuable evidence and opportunities. She has pushed for renewed investigative efforts and has worked with journalists and documentary filmmakers to generate new interest in the case. And interest in the case has indeed remained high. Maura Murray's disappearance has been the subject of numerous podcasts, including some that have done deep dive investigations spanning dozens of episodes. There have been television specials, documentary series, and countless online forums where amateur sleuths discuss and debate every aspect of the case. Unsolved. Maura's disappearance has become one of the most analyzed and discussed missing person cases in American history. But this intense public interest has been a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's kept the case alive and has generated new tips and theories. On the other hand, it hath also led to harassment of people who have been named as potential suspects but never charged with anything. It's led to wild speculation and conspiracy theories that have sometimes obscured rather than illuminated the truth. And it's been painful for the family, who have had to watch their private tragedy become public entertainment. One of the most prominent theories that emerged from online discussions involves the possibility that Maura encountered someone who was specifically targeting young women. Some researchers have tried to connect Maura's disappearance to other unsolved cases of missing or attacked women in New England around the same time period. These theories have suggested the possibility of a serial offender operating in the region. While this is certainly possible, serial offenders do exist and do target vulnerable people. There is no hard evidence connecting Maura's case to any others. Law enforcement has investigated these potential connections but hasn't found anything definitive. Another theory that gained traction online involves the possibility that Maura was meeting someone in New Hampshire, perhaps for a romantic rendezvous or to escape her life for a while. Some have speculated she might have had a secret relationship or was planning to stay with someone unknown to her family. This theory attempts to explain why she was so secretive about her trip and why she might have gotten into a car willingly, but again, there's no evidence supporting this. Phone records from before her disappearance don't show calls to any unknown numbers. Her computer history, while showing searches for places to stay, doesn't show communication with anyone who might have been waiting for her. What we're left with, after more than 20 years of investigation and speculation, is a case that refuses to yield its secrets. Every theory has some evidence that seems to support it and other evidence that contradicts it. Every lead eventually goes cold. Every search comes up empty. It's a maddening situation for everyone involved. The New Hampshire Attorney General's office continues to classify Maura's case as suspicious and continues to investigate. They've stated publicly that they believe Maura was the victim of a crime. Though they haven't specified exactly what they think happened or who they think might be responsible, they've followed up on thousands of tips over the years. They've worked with the FBI and other agencies. They've used advanced forensic techniques to re-examine evidence. But so far, nothing has led to a resolution. In 2022, the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit announced they were taking a fresh look at Maura's case using new investigative techniques and technologies that were available in 2004. This included advanced DNA analysis, cell phone tower analysis, and other forensic methods. The family was hopeful that these new approaches might finally provide answers. But, as of now, no major breakthroughs have been announced. One of the most heart-wrenching aspects of this case is imagining what happened in those minutes after Maura crashed her car. Was she scared? Was she hurt more seriously than witnesses realized? Did she trust the wrong person? Did she make a split-second decision that sealed her fate? Or was there no decision at all? Was she simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, becoming the victim of someone who saw an opportunity? These questions haunt everyone who has followed this case, and they've led to some broader discussions about safety, about how we respond to people in vulnerable situations, and about the dangers that exist even in places we think of as safe. The Maura Murray case has also highlighted issues with how missing person investigations are handled, particularly in rural areas with limited resources. The initial response to Maura's disappearance wasn't aggressive enough, and crucial time was lost. This has led to changes in protocols and training for law enforcement in New Hampshire and elsewhere. Maura's case has become an example used in training scenarios, a way to teach officers what to do and what not to do when someone goes missing in suspicious circumstances. For the online community that has formed around this case, the investigation continues informally. People analyze photos, maps, and they track down and interview witnesses. They file Freedom of Information requests for police documents. Some of this amateur detective work has been helpful, generating new leads and keeping pressure on authorities to continue investigating. But some of it has also been harmful, spreading misinformation and unfairly pointing fingers at innocent people. The family's message has been consistent. They just want answers. They want to know what happened to Maura. They want to bring her home, wherever she is. And they want whoever is responsible, if there is someone responsible, to be held accountable. After more than 2 decades of uncertainty, they deserve at least that much. But as the years pass, the chances of solving this case diminish. Witnesses' memories fade. Evidence degrades. People who might have had crucial information pass away, taking their knowledge with them. The landscape around the crash site has changed. Buildings have been torn down or renovated. The world has moved on, even as Maura's family remains frozen in that moment in February 2004. Yet there's still hope. Cold cases are solved sometimes, even decades later. New technologies emerge. People's consciences bother them, and they come forward with information they've been holding on to for years. Deathbed confessions happen. Evidence that was once ambiguous becomes clear with new analytical techniques. It's not over until it's over. The question is whether, after all this time, the truth about what happened to Maura Murray on that cold February night will ever come to light. And if it does, will it be the answer that her family hopes for, or will it be something even more tragic than they've imagined? What seems certain is that this case will continue to captivate people for years to come. A reminder of how quickly someone can vanish and how difficult it can be to find answers. Even in our modern world, with all its technology and investigative resources, Maura Murray drove into the darkness, and the darkness kept her. And until the day that changes, her story will remain one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries. Before we end this video, I want to take a moment to address something that's easy to forget when we rediscussing cases like this. Behind all the theories, the speculation, and the mystery, there's a real family that has been living through unimaginable pain for over 20 years. Maura Murray wasn't just a case number or a true crime story. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. She was someone who loved running, who worked hard in school, who had dreams and plans for her future. The Murray family has shown incredible strength and resilience throughout these 2 decades of uncertainty. They've never given up searching for answers. They've never stopped hoping that one day they'll finally know what happened to Maura. But no family should have to endure this kind of torment, this kind of endless not knowing. Our hearts go out to Julie Murray, to Maura's siblings, and to everyone who loved her. They've handled this tragedy with dignity and grace, and they deserve to have peace. They deserve to bring Maura home. If you or someone you know has any information about Maura Murray's disappearance, no matter how small or insignificant it might seem, please contact law enforcement immediately. Call 911 or reach out to the New Hampshire State Police. You might have that one piece of information that could finally solve this case. You might be the person who can give this family the closure they've been desperately seeking for more than 20 years. Sometimes people hesitate to come forward because they think their information isn't important enough, or because they're worried about getting involved. But investigators need every piece of the puzzle. What seems like a minor detail to you could be the breakthrough this case needs. If you saw something that night, if you heard something, if you know something, anything at all, please speak up. Do it for Maura. Do it for her family. Do it because it's the right thing to do. And to everyone watching this video, thank you for taking the time to learn about Maura's story. By keeping her case in the public consciousness, by sharing this video, by talking about it with others, you're helping to ensure that Maura isn't forgotten. You're helping to keep pressure on authorities to continue investigating, and you're giving the Murray family hope that someday, somehow, they'll get the answers they deserve. Maura Murray has been missing since February 9, 2004. She was 21 years old when she disappeared. If she's still alive today, she would be in her early 40s. Someone out there knows what happened. Someone out there has information that could solve this mystery. If that someone is you, please find the courage to come forward. Let's bring Maura home.